So what is the purpose of an arm sleeve? My experience with playing on many different surfaces is that my skin interacts with the surfaces that I play on in different ways. So as an example, playing on a cloth pad that is abrasive can sort of drag on your skin, whereas playing on a cloth pad that is really smooth doesn't drag on your skin at all, and maybe it sticks slightly. Those sorts of different textures can have a different impact on the way your skin interacts with it. So for myself, someone that plays on hard pads, glass and ceramic, your hand does stick and it's very difficult to use it for me without using an arm sleeve. So the sleeve itself puts a layer of fabric between your skin and the playing surface, and it takes all of that inconsistency away, just creates a really nice smooth glide, and there's no issue that you might experience when you don't wear a sleeve of your hand sort of skipping across the surface or maybe getting stuck, because it's always smooth. There's never any sort of sweat that's getting through it into the pad and then altering that glide. So ultimately the reason you would use a sleeve is to increase your consistency on the playing surface that you choose to use. I primarily use hard pads and my hands do stick to hard pads, and I find that using a sleeve just allows me to have that consistent glide, and I don't have to worry about that level of inconsistency that I would have if I didn't use a sleeve. My hand would skip across the surface, for example, or get stuck. What I would say is I don't use cloth pads all that much, and there is another sort of layer of complexity when you talk about sleeves and cloth pads, because the fabric from the sleeve and the fabric from the pad can sometimes interact in weird and wonderful ways, and it might adjust the way that the X-axis glide feels in comparison to the Y-axis glide. My advice to you, if you find yourself looking for a sleeve and you have a specific soft pad you like to use, is to ask that question on the Mousepad review subreddit on Reddit, because there will definitely be someone who has a experience that they'd be willing to share with you on that topic. If this video has helped you in any way, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more coming. It's my birthday this weekend as well. So give me that birthday present, hit the like button, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Peace. So the next question being, should you wear one? And I guess I would just relay that question back to you. Do you feel like that your glide on the playing surface that you use is inconsistent or taking away from your aim mechanics? Because if you don't feel like that's the case, you don't feel like you're getting stuck to the surface or that your skin is getting irritated by the abrasiveness of the pad, etc., then you probably don't need to have a sleeve. And before I used hard pads, I didn't use a sleeve on my soft pads because I didn't feel like I needed to. They just felt a little bit extra, honestly. But now that I have sleeves and I've used them on hard pads, when I do use soft pads, I will sometimes use a sleeve because it just takes away that additional bit of stick that you feel. You might not notice it. Sometimes with these gaming peripherals, what you find is you don't know what you don't know. You won't necessarily know what you're missing if you haven't ever worn one. And you might find most cloth pad users would probably benefit from having that extra consistency. But if you've not noticed it, you probably don't need to worry about it. Okay, so there's a couple of things I think are quite important before we get into the specifics of the sleeves that we have here today. And one of them being the material composition of the sleeve. I find that to be quite important. So there's typically two materials that they'd use in a sleeve, one of them being polyester, the other one being spandex or lycra, and that's just the stretchy part of the sleeve. And the sleeves we've got here today, they all sort of are different. That's why I've chosen them. As a demonstration, this Skypad sleeve is a 90-10 composition. So you can see, hopefully, if I move out of the way, that's taut now. If I pull it, you can see it stretches a bit, but not too much. And this Ghostglide sleeve is a 75-25 composition. So you can see that's taut. And now if I stretch it, it stretches a lot. So that's taut. Stretch it, it stretches a lot. I just broke it. I ripped this, stretching it. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it, but just bear in mind, I've done this video, I've recorded this video like 6 times now, so I've stretched it quite hard. And look at these puppies. So it's not gonna happen the first time you do it. It's still usable with the stitches ripped. And the stitches do look quite strong. I'm just an idiot that likes to break nice things. So the difference there is the higher the composition, the more it will stretch, which I'll get into why that's useful later in the video. The flip side of that is that the lower percentage you have of the spandex or the lycra in your sleeves just means that you'll feel a little bit more restricted possibly when you have the sleeve on, and it'll be more like compressed, feel more compressive and less stretchy, if you like, to your skin. If you get a smaller size, it will just clamp on. Another thing that's really important, which I didn't realize would be a thing when I bought all of these sleeves, is that the sizes of these sleeves appear to be quite random. So as an example, again, just to pick on the Skypad sleeve here, they've got two sizes. This one is a small and an extra small, so they're like combined sizes. And this one is a large and an extra large combined size. I would suggest this one should probably be an extra small because it is so tiny. And this one should be a medium because it's really not that much bigger than the extra small. So if I put this on, I'll show you how tight it is. Try not to be too intimidated by the size of my arms here. You can see how tight that is. And like I said, there's not much stretch in it, although it does look a bit stretchy. It just feels very tight. That's a large and an extra large size. And I don't have massive arms. You can see that the sizes could probably do with being revised for some of these sleeves. In contrast, this one's a large and it feels like the right size for me. I think the Ghostglides have quite a good size chart, and the comments suggested that you buy one above the size that it suggested in the size chart, which is what I did. So I've bought the Ghostglide at a large despite the size chart saying I needed a medium. Typically when you're shopping for sleeves, the comments section and the reviews are your best friend, because people will tell you what their experience is with buying these things and whether the size was true to form or not. As I say though, all of the different sizes were different across the board. Okay, and then my final point before we move into the reviews is whether you need to buy a sleeve at all. Could you just use something else that's lying around your house, like a hoodie or, you know, a thin jumper or something? And absolutely you can, and just make sure it's comfortable. I guess the challenge for that with me is I don't like to wear long sleeve things very much, ever. So I get really hot. You can probably see me sweating out here in the sun. Holy shit, it's hot out here. But the reason I like to have a sleeve is because it only covers part of my arm. It doesn't cover my whole, you know, upper body. And what this sleeve is a recycled rugby top. So I have like a thermal. We play rugby over here in the UK. I had a thermal that I hadn't used in about 10 years. So I just cut the sleeves off and it works. It functions fine as a sleeve. You know, it's a bit baggy. It's not perfect, but it does the job. And I'd suggest, you know, if you have something hanging around that you can repurpose that you don't use anymore, it's a really cost-effective solution. All right, so I've got lots of different options here. I just want to go through the pros and the cons of each, and then I'll give you my final recommendation, which I do have one that I prefer over them all. So just bear in mind as we go through this sleeve breakdown, Pulsar sent me those sleeves and everything else I've bought. So bear that in mind, although hopefully my experience with these sleeves will talk for themselves. I won't necessarily have to justify to you or explain to you that this opinion is my own, because hopefully that will just come across. So the sleeve that I chopped off from my old rugby top is pretty comfortable, honestly. There's no issues with it. The only reason I bought a sleeve after some time of using this one was because I wanted to try one with the hand shape to it, because typically what I do with my sleeves is I pull them up to cover the fat parts of my hand, my palm, just to make sure that they're not sort of skipping across the glass. The only issue with these is that they were just sort of the usual sort of wrist cut off, and I wanted to try that palm shape that you get in the Skypad sleeve. So I bought the Skypad sleeve and I really liked it. It's a really solid sleeve, despite me criticizing it at the start of this video. It's really good, and it has specific sort of aim types, I would suggest, that are really good for this, or grip styles that are perfect for it. So there are pros and cons in my experience to having your palm covered. The issue I have with the palm being covered is when you want to use your palm in your grip, it's much more slippy than your skin would be. So, you know, if you put grip tape on the back of your mouse, that can help. That can mitigate that issue. And one of the things I've found, as I put some pictures up on the screen now, or videos of showing you this happen, but when I hold palm grip, or if I claw grip a mouse with a palm sleeve and I pick up the mouse, it sometimes just drops out the back of my hand because there's no skin contact for it to grip onto. So the use case for the palm sleeves, in my opinion, is if you are a fingertip gripper and you don't need to use your palm at all in contact with your mouse. You know, in that instance, these sleeves are great, they're perfect really. The only downside to this sleeve is that it feels quite hot. It feels very compressed, and my arms haven't grown since I bought this. So this is just the experience. It just feels clingy and on me. And I put that down to just the weird sizings. And then finally, the final thing I'd mention with the Skypad sleeves is when I bought this sleeve, I had to sort of put my finger in there into the thumb part and break a few of the stitches because my thumb was losing circulation because it was so tight. Skypad sleeve overall, pretty good, but with some downsides depending on what aim style you use. And they do sell a sleeve without the palm bit. I'd expect if you were a claw or a palm gripper, that version of the Skypad sleeve would probably work better for you than the palm grip, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I went from that sleeve, which is a 90-10 composition again, so it's not that stretchy, although it is a bit stretchy. I went from that sleeve to the Ghostglide sleeve. And the reason I bought this one was because I was looking for a high blended mix, if you like, in terms of material. So this one has a 25-75 material composition. And the first thing I noticed when I put it on was just how different it felt in terms of texture, if you like, on my skin. This one feels a little bit cool to the touch. It's also a lot more comfortable because it's not so tight. And the thing I mentioned earlier about there being like an advantage of it being stretchy is that when it stretches over your skin, it's not working against you so much to get back to its original shape. So if I put it over my palm like this, like I wear all of my sleeves, it's not trying to pull my thumb and my pinky together like something without as much stretch would do. And what I've found is if you find yourself fighting against a sleeve too much in that sort of use case, it just fatigues you over time because it's basically like a hand workout. Overall, I really like this sleeve. This is probably my second favorite sleeve on the desk. It's really, really nice. The only issue I have with this sleeve is their availability. I think Ghostglides are restocking soon. I would bear that in mind. Okay, and then we're on now to the Pulsar suite of sleeves. And like I said, Pulsar provided these. I'm going to talk you through the ones that I've tried. I don't think I've tried all of them. I've tried most of them. And then I'm going to talk you through the ones that I disliked first, then on through to my favorite of them all. So the worst one I tried was the arm short. Hopefully you can see that there. And basically, this just feels like a bit of a useless piece of fabric, to be honest with you. It kind of covers this section of your arm. It doesn't go over the elbow. So that's where it's supposed to sit. Kind of see that there. What I like to do with my sleeves is have it up like that. Whereas this one keeps pinging off because it's so taut. It's such a small piece of fabric that they don't stay there. So what I found is if I kept pulling it up, this bottom bit eventually would just come up like this, and then I'd be wearing like a scarf for my wrist, which I didn't like. So don't buy this one. This one's crap. This one's called the arm short. I would suggest if you want to buy one with just that normal ring around the top without the thumb or the pinky palm stuff, then get the arm long, which is basically exactly the same, just longer. It goes beyond your elbow, which gives it something to hook onto. The difference here is that this one isn't polyester, this one is nylon and spandex. So it's 80% nylon and a 20% spandex material composition, which is actually really nice. It's sort of a middle ground between super stretchy and then, you know, a bit more compressed. It all comes down to preference at the end of the day, which we'll go into now. So another thing which I really liked for fingertip grip, this sleeve was the next one I tried. In fact, this was the first one I tried, but this is the next one I'll talk about. And this is like a glove sleeve solution. And the thing that I find with sleeves, the main reason I need to wear them is because this part of my hand gets stuck to the pad. So the glove covers that part perfectly. It's really, really handy for that. The main thing I liked about it was that in the summer when these arrived, I didn't have to wear something on my arms, which would just keep me hotter than I needed to be. It was a super simple, super unique sleeve solution. The downside to this, the thing that killed it for me, was the same thing I mentioned with the Skypad sleeve. If you're using a palm or a claw grip, and you want to butt the mouse up into your palm, sometimes the mouse would just slip out when you pick it up. And again, I'll show you some pictures on screen now of what that might look like in practice. So as a fingertip solution, if you're only a fingertip aimer, this is perfect, at least in my opinion, because it covers the stickiest parts of your hand. I don't necessarily find this part of my arm sticks as much to the desk or the pad as this part of my hand. In that sense, it's really good. I also saw Not So Common Sense talk about this on Twitter. He's great, by the way, if you want to follow someone who genuinely does this review stuff out of passion. He seems to cover things in really good detail. One of his suggestions was that if you wanted to, you could buy one of these glove sleeves, and you could also buy one of these arm long sleeves. And basically you can wear the glove sleeve over the top of that one, so you can have them on at the same time. And if you don't like it, you can just take it off. Obviously the downside to that is you're buying two and they're not cheap. So let's move on to my favorite of them all. Again, hopefully this will go some way to explain why I like having a better or a good healthy mix of material composition. So this one is the palm long. Hopefully you can see that. And these are all sized in large, by the way. So if I put this on, just notice immediately that these sleeves are not too thick. They feel quite thin, which again is nice. It's a bit more breathable. And this kind of fits over my elbow, which is really nice. Comes up to about here, which gives it something to anchor into and against. Covers my palm, which is good when I want to fingertip. And I can, if I want to, I can pull this down and I can get more palm coverage on the mouse if I want to. Or because of the material composition is so stretchy, I can just take my thumb out of it and use it like a normal sleeve. So I've got a really good option here, which is why I like it the most, for a claw and a palm sleeve. And also, if I want to fingertip, I can just stick my thumb in and have it cover my palm, so I have, you know, a more comfortable fit without having to worry about adjusting it on the base of my palm again. So that's it. That's my number one recommendation, is the Palm Long from Pulsar. It's a bit of a banger. It's my favorite one. It's the one I use all the time now. I actually alternate between the Ghostglides and the Pulsar depending on which one I find first. But typically, if I see them at the same time, I'll pick up the Pulsar. And I do also want to talk about this weird product. I was very intrigued when I was conceptualizing this video to come up with a way of showing products that were alternatives to sleeves. This product is not really that, but at the time I thought it would be. So I'm just going to stay here while I talk about this one. Is that all right with you? Hope so. So the idea behind this product is that it puts your hand in a more ergonomic position. The whole company ethos behind the Carpio G2.0 is to reduce your injuries and to allow you to game longer, have longer game sessions with less injuries, basically. And I don't typically experience too many injuries when I game, but I did experience some issues in my wrist when I was playing with too high a sensitivity with the HSK Pro. But to resolve that, I just reduced my sensitivity. The idea here is this product, which is higher on this side than it is on this side, will put your hand in a more natural position, a more ergonomic position, and it will prevent your wrist from basically getting hurt through those ergonomics. The issue I have with this product is twofold, I think, possibly three. I'll see if I remember the third shortly. The main one, well, not the main one, but a big one is this is the thing that makes contact with the playing surface, and it is basically just another variable. It's much faster than a sleeve would be, and it's probably even faster than mouse feet because it's harder. It's like a really hard Teflon. So you end up fighting against the surface a bit. At least I found I was fighting against the surface a bit, and I found it hard to control alongside the mouse feet as well. So that's a negative, in my opinion, in my experience. Also, hopefully you can see there, maybe not, it's higher on one side than it is on the other. And it's quite considerable in terms of like depth. So what that basically serves to do is it just lifts your palm off the desk, which for ergonomics is useful, but to maintain consistent grip on a mouse that you've been using for years prior to this arriving, it's not that useful, because basically it repositions your hand at a different angle, at a different height, and your mouse isn't elevated as well. So you kind of end up missing 1.5 centimeters off one side of your mouse and about 0.5 centimeter on the other side of your mouse. So your mouse feels completely different. It's like a whole new shape, not necessarily in a good way, it just feels a bit flatter. And then the final thing I did remember is that when this is in your palm, what I like to do sometimes is pull the mouse into my palm, and I'll use the fleshy parts of my thumb and my pinky just to like help manage the stability while I draw back and manage my recoil, for example. What I've found with having this here though, is that the mouse will butt into this solid plastic. So you can see it kind of sits in a position where that would happen quite frequently. That's kind of the natural position it should sit in. And it stops it from being pulled back any further. So you have like a hard stop there, almost like a barrier to like a car park or something, just stopping you from passing. So if you are one of those people that uses palm grip or a claw grip and you pull the mouse back into your palm very frequently, you probably won't want to try one of these because it will stop you from doing that. And the only people I recommend this product to are the people that genuinely need it for their health issues, for health reasons, which is what this is advertised as. I guess, Deltahub, the company that produce these, have a very admirable mission, and I'm not trying to shit all over their product because I genuinely think it's useful for someone. But if you don't have those wrist issues, I just would probably not use this instead of a sleeve. In my opinion, the sleeve is better because it's more controlled and you can have a better sort of aiming experience. It doesn't limit your aim in any way. All right, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.